Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Complicated Relationships Reddit Stories. Hope you guys are safe and healthy. Now let's see what we have in store for you today. In today's story, the man says, I'm getting married in 2 weeks, but the whole thing is totally messed up and I'm wondering what I should do. I feel like I'm going crazy and I really need to get this off my chest. Now this is an updated story, so stay with us until the end. The story goes like this. My fiancé, we'll call her Sarah, and I have known each other for about 6+ years, engaged for 1. Our wedding is planned to take place in just 2 weeks, and I just observed something that is making me feel like I'm making a huge mistake in my life. Tonight, Sarah and I were taking a rare opportunity to relax at home. Sarah was in the kitchen making dinner, while I was out in the backyard working on one of my projects. Anyway, as you know, when you're doing heavy labor, you get thirsty. So I came back to the house to get a drink, where I see Sarah in the kitchen preparing dinner and talking on speakerphone. I recognize the voice instantly as my brother-in-law, Marty. Now, this is where my brain gets totally twisted. Marty asks Sarah where her sister Evelyn is, as he's been trying to get in contact with her and she's not answering his text or calls. I hear Sarah telling him, she just left here. She should be home in half an hour or so. It should be noted that Evelyn is Marty's wife of 5 years. I have to admit that I didn't immediately register what she had just said because I went into the kitchen and grabbed a glass and asked Sarah, what was that all about? And she responded with, Marty is looking for Evie. I see her texting and I ask her, what are you doing? And she says, I'm texting Evie that Marty was looking for her. Anyway, I pour myself a drink, sit down, have a sip, and then finally my brain starts to work. First off, I heard Sarah tell Marty that Evelyn was here. Evelyn was not here, and the last time we saw her was yesterday when she came over to work on some last-minute wedding decoration stuff with Sarah. Secondly, why is she texting Evelyn and expecting a response when I distinctly heard Marty that Evelyn wasn't answering her texts? Lastly, why did she tell Marty that Evelyn should be back in 30 minutes unless she knows where she is? Why did she lie? She is right now in front of me, texting her to tell her to get her bottom home quickly. The only conclusion that I came up with is that Sarah is lying to Marty about the whereabouts of her sister, Marty's wife, and is probably warning Evie that Marty will expect her home in half an hour. I then spent probably the next 5 hours concocting various explanations for this behavior, some decent, some downright horrible, and playing them back in my head. I wanted really badly to ask Sarah about this, but at the same time, if what I think is going on, then I doubted I'd get a straight answer. Now, this brings me to about an hour ago. I woke up around 1 a.m. to use the toilet and I couldn't resist the urge to check Sarah's phone. We both know each other's pins, so this wasn't a difficult thing to do. Anyway, I grabbed her phone and went through her messages. Yes, it was exactly what I was afraid of, and probably what most of you were expecting. Sarah's sister Evelyn has been having an affair for about 6 months with a co-worker, and Sarah has been helping Evelyn cover it up for almost that entire time. There are literally hundreds of texts between them discussing it, discussing the co-worker, discussing physical stuff, really embarrassing things about my brother-in-law, just stuff that makes my stomach churn. And here is my soon-to-be wife going along with all of it without batting an eye. I took some screenshots of the entire thread, put the phone back where I found it, and then retreated to my home office to find myself here, typing it out all on this sub, simply so I can avoid the primal scream that wants to come out of my mouth right now. I am totally 100% messed up. I cannot marry Sarah. I just cannot do it. I can't think of any reasonable excuse she could offer me about assisting her sister in this affair and victimizing not only Marty but their 2-year-old daughter as well. On the other hand, myself, my family, Sarah and her family have all sunk an enormous amount of money into a wedding that is supposed to happen in around 2 weeks. There is no way we are getting any of that money back. On top of that, I feel like an absolute fool. Like, how did I not know this woman was like this? And what am I going to do? I can't marry her. I absolutely cannot. However, I still want to. She is beautiful and fun and kind, and I thought we had a bright future ahead of us. She's never done anything wrong to me, but I just can't see her the same way now. It's like a big black stain on an otherwise beautiful picture. I just don't know how I got this so wrong, and I'm absolutely dreading doing what I know I need to do. It is obvious the wedding is off. I'm just trying to figure out my next steps and work up the nerve to do it. There's an incredible amount of pressure on me from the expectations of everyone, but I'm not going to buckle under it. The update goes like this. I got to work around 7 and no one was in the office, so I decided to call my brother. He lives in Australia, so he was still up after having just put his kids to bed. It was hard breaking the news to him, but I know he has laid out a huge amount of money for flights for him and his family to come, but to his credit as an older brother, he didn't mention it one time and just backed me up. He also had a great idea. He was going to take his family down to Florida and to do some sightseeing and visit the parks. Now the kids would be accompanied by their uncle as well. It should be easy since we were going to honeymoon there as well, and we were planning on meeting them for a bit anyway. I'll just rebook everything to be closer to him and his family, and I'll offer Sarah's ticket to either my sister or another family member. Here is another update. My stomach is doing flip-flops from drinking about 2 pots of coffee since I got in here so early, and I absolutely cannot focus and concentrate. I feel like I just can't do anything really from my side until I tell Marty what I know, so I'm just going to take a sick day and drive over to his house. Marty is a teacher who is on a break right now, and Evelyn works the 9 to 5. I got to Marty's house a little after 10 a.m. and we had a long talk in the kitchen. Basically, he has suspected this for a couple of months now, but Evelyn has been very good at covering her tracks, obviously with the assistance of Sarah and a couple of their mutual friends. I, unfortunately, do not have all 6 months of text messages. Just a couple of dozen screenshots I sent to myself from Sarah's phone, but I gave him what I have and offered to help him however I could. I'm a field analyst in the SIU department of a mid-sized insurer specializing in workers' compensation fraud, so I know a few things and a few people. I'm going to have to talk to Sarah this evening to get the word out as fast as I can, so I can tell my friends and family. So far I managed to rebook most of the honeymoon, although I had a problem with the ticket because Sarah was flying under her maiden name and our carrier has a surname rule for name changes. I'm holding out on cancelling the venues until after I talk to Sarah because I don't want to tip anyone off until Marty gets his chance to confront Evelyn. But I will absolutely be letting my family and friends know this afternoon and beg them to keep it close. I'm heading down to the bank in a few minutes to open a new account and get my bills and payments sorted out. The mortgage is in my name since we were not married and I have the bigger income. But Sarah did contribute about 20 grand versus my 60 grand towards the down payment. I will have to probably pay her out that money and some portion of the mortgage payments for the last 16 months, but it could be worse. Well guys, we have the next update coming up, but before that, if you are enjoying the story so far, please hit the like button so this video will reach more and more beautiful people like you all over the world. Alright, on to the next update. First off, I want to say something here. I do not hate Sarah. I don't approve of what she did. I frankly find it repulsive and I'm shocked by uncovering how two-faced she can be in how she treats people. But I don't hate her. Basically, our relationship is in a state where I cannot get married to her, but we're supposed to get married in 2 weeks. Maybe if we had 2 months, or better yet, a year or so to work through this, my approach might be vastly different. But I don't have that luxury. I have to move now. There's just no way I can enter into marriage with the state our relationship is in now, so I'm not going to. It's about 8:30 p.m. right now and I'm writing this from my buddy's house. His name is Mark and a former co-worker of mine who is also in the same field of work. Marty asked for my help in finding out who the guy Evelyn is cheating on him with. All we had to go on was a name. Let's call him Jake. The first thing I did was not some major amount of sleuthing. It was basically just going through LinkedIn, trying to find the guy through Evelyn's connections that brought up nothing. Which I thought was strange. Marty had told me that Evelyn was supposed to go out for drinks tonight after work, that she said she wouldn't be home until around 9 or 10. He didn't have to tell me what he suspected since I pretty much understood right away. I told him that I would help him, but he needed to come with me. I then contacted my buddy, let's call him Mark, explained the situation to him, and had him agree to meet us later in the day. The first thing we did was drive over to Marty's parents' house so that they could watch their granddaughter. After that, we went to Evelyn's place of work. It's one of those large commercial strip mall type centers with all those nondescript offices in a row and a large non-gated car park. We drove around until we found Evelyn's car, and then I had Marty unlock it with a second set of keys. I gave Marty a voice-activated recorder and GPS tracker to place in the car. Once done with that, we left, parked a bit down the street, and waited for my friend to arrive and for Evelyn to leave the office. Mark shows up about 20 minutes later, hops in the car with us, and around an hour later, Evelyn comes out of her office with two of her girlfriends and a tall, younger-looking man with sandy blonde hair. They are obviously holding hands. I took a couple of pictures from the car and then wait for Evelyn to leave in hers, and I start tracking her. At first I thought she might go right to a hotel or something, but she didn't. Instead, she drove to a reasonably nice bar and grill in a nice section of town and parked on the street. I drove by her as she was getting out of her car and entering the establishment, and then found my own parking spot and went over the plan. First, we sent Mark in, since no one knew him. He had two things to do. First, try to get any compromising pictures that he could of Evelyn and Jake, and second, to be my alibi. Marty and I waited in the car for around 20 minutes until I got the first in the series of text messages from Mark. There were pictures of Evelyn and Jake making out in front of their two female co-workers. Marty's suspicions were right. They were helping Evelyn hide the affair from him. He was obviously very upset and angry. Evidently, one of the co-workers is married, and as a couple they are good friends with Marty and Evelyn, both of them having toddlers around the same age. I asked Marty if that's enough for him, but he says he still really wants to know who this guy is. I try to tell him that we can find out later, but he's practically begging me at this point, so I tell him to wait, text Mark that I'm coming in, and enter the bar myself. The first thing I see is Evelyn and her crew laughing and drinking in one of those tall round tables near the front window as I enter. I stop for a moment, pretend to be surprised, and then call out to Evelyn. "Evelyn, hi, what are you doing here?" She's obviously shocked to see me, and everyone around her tenses up immediately. Evelyn quickly introduces me as her sister's fiancé and says that we are getting married in 2 weeks. There are a lot of congratulations from everyone. I thank them and then stick out my hand to the blonde guy and introduce myself with my full name, hoping that he'll respond in kind. He does, and I'm a bit taken aback. He's not named Jake. I introduce myself to everyone else and then tell Evelyn that I'm here to meet a co-worker. I wave at Mark and then excuse myself. Once I go over to Mark, I tell him the guy's name and we both whip out our phones and go to work. It doesn't take long for us to find him. He's got social media profiles and a couple of court case judgments against him. Everything sort of falls into place when we find out that Jake is his middle name. At this point, I'm basically just grateful that Evelyn isn't cheating on Marty with two different co-workers. Turns out that Jake is 26, married, and has a 1-year-old daughter. This just keeps getting better. Anyway, I text Marty the guy's name and I decide I want to push my luck and tell him to wait a few more minutes. Basically, I'm playing babysitter here at the bar. I'm totally visible to Evelyn and her crew. I can see out of the corner of my eye that no one is particularly happy about this, and my presence is really ruining the night. This is good. I let this go on for about 10 minutes and then told Marty to text Evelyn that he was spending the night at his parents' house with their daughter. It doesn't take long after that until I catch Evelyn taking out her phone, showing it to Jake, and then everyone deciding to pack up. Evelyn comes over to me, says goodnight, and asks me if Sarah and I want to come over for dinner this weekend. I smile and say that sounds like a great idea and wish her and her co-workers a good night. Mark and I wait for them to leave, then pay our bill and hurry back to the waiting Marty. There's a bit of hesitation here because we don't know exactly what Evelyn was going to do. Like I half assumed she might have already booked a hotel room and was heading there, which would have made everything a lot more complicated and limited what I could do. But it turns out that tonight was probably meant to be just drinks at the bar, and it wasn't until Marty decided to spend the night at his parents' that it now turned into something more. Evelyn made a beeline for home and we followed behind her way out of sight and parked down the street. It didn't take long after that until another car pulled into Marty's driveway and we saw Jake get out, go up to the door, knock and be greeted by Evelyn. They went inside together. Now at this point it's about 7:30. I have my own stuff to do tonight and I think that as a friend I've done pretty much all I can do for Marty and he can handle the rest himself. I mean, I definitely feel bad for this guy, but I don't want to get any more involved in this drama than I already am. And being the wingman for him while he confronts his cheating wife is a bit much for me considering my situation. Marty says that's fine, that he'll do the rest of it himself. He goes to Evelyn's car, retrieves my gear, and we bid each other goodbye. That was almost 2 hours ago. I did get one text message from Marty saying it was done and he was going to his parents' house, for real this time. But my phone hasn't been blowing up, so I don't know what's been going on with Evelyn. I think that basically concludes my part of Marty's story. If he was smart and listened to my advice, he was recording with his phone when he entered the house. I'll find out later. Anyway, my biggest priority now is to head home and tell Sarah that the wedding is off. She is almost 100% going to take it badly. There's no way she won't. But like I said, I just can't get married to her right now. I don't know what the future holds for us, or if we will be done with each other or not, but definitely we are not getting married anytime soon. Now the question you might ask me is, why didn't I talk to Sarah first? Why didn't I confront her? I have to say she stone cold lied in front of me to her brother-in-law, whom she has known for about 10 years and purportedly thinks is a really great husband and father. I'm not naive enough to think that someone can lie that coldly to someone they are supposed to care about and then tell you the truth, but I'm not wired that way. Until that moment, I never had a cause to ever second-guess Sarah or not trust her. But she was literally untrustworthy in front of my face, and I'm supposed to let it slide or expect her to be honest to me? I'm actually impressed I kept my head and followed my instincts instead of pressing her right away, because it led me to the truth. It would have been ridiculously easy for her to lie to me and then delete those text messages, and if she had done that, then I would have never read the horrible things she said. Never seen how she can be so duplicitous and two-faced, and never realized how little actually I knew about her. Alright, now here is yet another update. I texted Sarah and I told her I was coming home and left in my car. I was pretty surprised when I got there because when I walked into the house, Evelyn was crying on the couch with Sarah. I hadn't seen Evelyn's car in the driveway when I came home, so this was probably the last thing I was expecting. I froze for a moment and almost turned around and left. This was not how I imagined this going down, and I knew that Evelyn's presence was going to make a bad situation a million times worse. Still, I had a timetable that I wanted to move on, and I had friends I needed to notify and wedding preparations to cancel, and the proverbial clock was ticking in the back of my head. When I entered the room, both Sarah and Evelyn looked up at me in acknowledgement. I just stared back, raising my eyes in question. The moment passed and Evelyn went back to crying, Sarah back to comforting, and I let it awkwardly hang in the air for about half a minute while I thought. It seemed that Marty hadn't mentioned my assistance in the uncovering of Evelyn's affair. I decided to play dumb, not for any reason other than I wanted to see how Sarah reacted. I took a seat on a recliner, put down my laptop bag, and took my phone out of my pocket. I made it look like I was fidgeting with it, and then asked them, "What's going on?" Evelyn continued to cry, but Sarah looked at me and said, "Marty is divorcing Evie." I decided to push ahead with the obvious question. "What for?" I asked her. Sarah stopped patting Evelyn's back for a moment and looked at me. I could almost see her face twist and contort. Imagine the look a 5-year-old makes when you tell them to eat their broccoli or finish their lima beans. Evelyn shot Sarah a look that I didn't need to be a sister to understand, and there was a pregnant pause until Sarah finally said she cheated on him. Evelyn wasn't happy about this. She kind of crumpled into the couch a bit and did this strange combination of a sigh and sob at the same time. I asked Sarah, "Did you know?" Sarah didn't say anything. She just nodded, her hand still rubbing her sister's shoulder. I asked how long. The answer came back a lot easier than I thought. 6 months. I was shocked by how easily she admitted to it. Evelyn was shocked as well. She smacked her sister's hand off her, and I think even Sarah was a little shocked at saying it out loud. I said, "We're not getting married." The two of them looked like stunned goats, and a chorus of "Huh? What?" from both sisters. I stood up and repeated myself. "We're not getting married. I can't marry someone who would cover up adultery, especially not for 6 months. Sarah sprang off the couch and opened her arms. Her body language was, "You can't be serious." But I just put my hands in front of myself. "I'm serious. I don't like this, not one bit. I don't like that you took part in this, and I can't get married to you with how I feel. It would be a mistake." The waterworks started immediately, and even Evelyn did that thing with her mouth that looks like a perch trying to suck air. There were wails from Sarah, accusations of not loving her, appeals to my sense of duty, to the loss of money, the inconvenience to all our friends, the embarrassment of it all. It was frankly nothing I hadn't already thought about, but it definitely felt different hearing Sarah say it through body-racking sobs. It was at this point I probably made a big mistake. Well, maybe not, because I have no idea how long Marty would have kept my involvement in everything off the books. But in an effort to convince Sarah of the finality of it all, I said, "Look, I already cancelled the honeymoon. It's not happening." I knew it was a lot to take, and the outburst was damn near immediate. Evelyn, to her credit, had always been pretty quick on the uptake, which is probably how she had managed to fool her husband for so long. I could almost see the realization dawning on her when she put it all together with my appearance at the bar earlier this evening. She screamed and charged across the room at me. Now, I'm not a huge guy, but I'm no slouch either. But the force that Evelyn flung herself at me had me staggering backwards, and I barely had enough time to get my hands up before she put her hands on me. I almost lost the phone I still had in my hand, but still managed to push her away and say very loudly, "Evelyn, get off me. Sarah, get your sister under control." Evelyn made another huge lunge for me, but surprisingly Sarah did exactly what I asked her to do, wrapped her arms around her sister's waist and held her in place. I looked at Evelyn and yelled, "Get out of here right now or I am calling the police," holding my phone up for emphasis. I marched into my home office, locked the door and dialed the police. Sarah came knocking on the door. She said, "Please come out. We need to talk about this. And please, I love you. Don't do this. We don't need to do this." And even Evelyn is sorry. She wants to apologize. Right then the police rocked up to our front door. I could hear Sarah talking to them, and I decided to come out. I introduced myself, pointed at Evelyn, stating that she had attacked me, and offered to show the cops the recording I made. The younger one asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. I have video evidence, and this is going to court. The two officers handcuffed Evelyn and put her in the back of the patrol car. The next day was by far the weirdest day of my life. To start with, I woke up at 11 a.m. Sarah was still home. I took a deep breath and told her we needed to finish talking. She tried to sit next to me on the couch, and I thought about rebuffing her, but I didn't. We were not getting married, but I didn't need to act like I hated her, because truthfully I didn't. I was disappointed in her, disgusted by some of the things I had read in her text exchanges with her sister. It took some more convincing on my part for Sarah to truly and fully believe that the wedding was off. She was not taking it well, and that's an understatement. She was a wreck. I think she was hyperventilating a few times. Finally, she asked the serious question, "What about us?" I said I couldn't understand why she would go along with Evelyn putting down Marty and joining in, and even egging her on in cheating, and not only him, but their daughter too. She just kept saying, I know, it was wrong, I know." I asked her for an explanation, but she couldn't provide one. She just said that she got carried away and that she had to choose her sister. I get this. I have an older sibling too, and while I'm a bit more independent, I also spent the last 18 years of my life with him living on the other side of the planet, except for the odd occasional visit around Thanksgiving or Christmas. But still, maybe I had a leg up on Sarah because my older sibling was a decent guy while Evelyn was a piece of trash. We ended the conversation there. And here's the final update to this story. Long story short, as for the issue with Marty and Evelyn, I don't think this is something that is going to be settled anytime soon. Marty is absolutely divorcing Evelyn, but it's difficult for him, primarily because she's making it difficult by begging him to reconsider. Marty hasn't made a big stink about this at Evelyn's work, despite the fact that he probably could get them both fired since it became obvious that they were using work trips to cheat on the company's dime. Nor has he gone and told Jake's wife about the affair either, something I strongly disagree with. When I questioned him about it, all he said was that he was in no big hurry. After all, he had read the text messages, the photos from the pub, and the video he took when he entered the house. Basically, he could ruin this guy whenever he wants to. I'm not sure, but Marty has definitely gotten a bit darker over this whole thing. Now, on to the big event, Sarah and I. We are still together. Definitely not in the way we were an engaged couple, but we haven't completely closed the door on the relationship either. Even though I found her behavior extremely gross and inappropriate, I gave her a lot of credit for how she dealt with the situation when I came home that night to find her and Evelyn on our couch. She didn't lie, she didn't minimize, and she largely took accountability for what she did. She was truthful to me even when she knew it would make her look bad. That actually counts for a lot in my book, which is why I'm looking at simply changing the chapter instead of closing it. We are definitely not together right now, so basically my situation is more or less just wait and see on the Sarah front. I have no interest in prolonging the situation that I see as hopeless, which I guess says it all. I don't think it's hopeless, I just think it's going to be difficult, and I'm open to waiting a bit to see how it plays out. The thing I'm struggling with, and maybe Sarah as well, is how much genuine love she has for me and how much of it is just a deeply ingrained need to please other people born out of her fear of rejection and anxiety. I guess barring throwing in the towel, when we reach the bottom of that question, we'll know the answer to Sarah's and my relationship. Thank you all for listening, and please let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Please like, share and subscribe for more. Take care.